Joining us now, it's Shuwaski Young, former 2023 Democratic nominee for Mississippi's Secretary of State. Shuwaski, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Man, thanks so much for having me here.
So you made an announcement here not so long ago that you are distancing yourself or disassociating yourself, I guess, from the Democratic Party. Is that right?
That is right. On yesterday, an article came out that was a op-ed in the Clarion Ledger where I announced that I am no longer a Democrat and have now self-identified as a Christian conservative.
Christian conservative. Okay, so
That's
at this point, you're not affiliated with any major party. You're not announcing that you're going to affiliate with the Republican Party. You're just no longer affiliated with the Democrat Party.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that's absolutely all the way what the truth would be. Right now, as I have continued to go along this journey, I have left the Democratic Party. I am in consideration talks with joining the Republican Party.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the motivation that drove you to leave the Democratic Party?
Yeah. Well, for me, it became unrecognizable to me, quite frankly. And quite frankly, there have been many nights, sleepless nights, weary nights, as the song would say, where I have been at odds with the direction of the party. As many people know, my entire career over the course of the last 15 years, from leaving Jackson State University to working in state government for both a Republican and a Democrat, to then, of course, going on to join the Obama administration and working for Secretary Hillary Clinton. Look, I've been a diehard Democrat my entire professional career. It's always been about fairness and equity, and those were the things that I thought would bring the best economic advancement for poor folks in Mississippi. It wasn't until lately, after also getting into the game of running for both U.S. Congress and also Secretary of State, talking with people around Mississippi, looking at what my own personal values were, looking at what my own upbringing here in Central Mississippi was, and also talking with people about what their perspectives was as well as it relates to mine. They all were really the same, and they were not what is aligned with what the national party is. This has nothing to do, I think, so much with what the state party actually represents. I think that here in Mississippi, the differences between the Democratic Party in Mississippi and the differences between the Republican Party in Mississippi are almost paper thin, unless you go to a national level as far as ideological perspective. For me, I think there's something wrong when we can't tell the truth anymore when it comes to how we view traditional family values, how we view what's right culturally and economically for people, whether we're talking about corporate taxes or capital gains. That type of stuff gets more complicated for people. But as far as what it means to be a Mississippian and what it means to be a Christian and what it means for those particular values to be represented in one's life, where we are as a national party today, which reflects also the state party, I would have to also admit, it's just not where I am today.
Okay. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that? Any specific cultural issues, for example?
I think that, quite frankly, whether we're talking about this in an open forum like today, or whether we're talking about this on the outside corridors of churches or at our family tables, at the end of the day, I don't agree with the fact that it's okay for one day boys to be playing with girls and girls to be playing with boys in competitive sports. I don't believe that the majority of Mississippians just are for abortion on a hilt. We're not talking about as it relates to rape or incest or any other harm or the woman's health. We're not talking about those things. Those things are already set in law. Those things are already recognized by both Republicans and Democrats and many other people across the political board. We're talking about abortion on demand now. We're talking about no matter what happens, this is the overarching way in which we want America to actually be. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the way that many Mississippians believe. In fact, I'm quite sure that's not the way most Democrats actually believe. That's a national party perspective. That is not the perspective that we grew up in our churches here in Mississippi, and that's not the perspective that we even believe here today. I'm at odds with those things. Okay. And for those reasons, that's why I've made the decision, amongst others, of course, economic reasons and policy reasons, monetary policy reasons. That's why I've made this decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just wonder, Shuwaski, if there are more Democrats out there that are like you, have worked in the Democrat Party, been loyal Democrats for a long time, and even ran for public office, statewide office, as you did as a Democrat, that are thinking the same.
Well, look, I know there are. I don't have to ask anyone.
Okay.
I've been in those rooms. I'm respected as a leader in those particular spaces, and I'm grateful for that. And I understand that there are so many people right now that are just, for lack of better words, disappointed in my decision. I'm okay with that. I know that they know who I am deep down. I know that they know who I am as a person and who I am as I like to call myself a politician, but if you Google me, that's what it says. I think that this is a moment of honesty and truth for me, and I think there are other people out there that feel the same way.
Is there a lot of pressure being a black man to be loyal to the Democrat Party? I mean, you making this announcement, it would be certainly probably worse if you announce, I'm going to change party affiliations and become a Republican. But it just feels like the Democrats just expect that black people in this country just have to be Democrats. I mean, even Joe Biden said it. If you're not, if you don't vote Democrat, you ain't black.
Put you back in chains, basically.
Put you back in chains, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. He said it, right?
It seems condescending. It almost presumes you don't think independently.
It absolutely does.
But I've interviewed you enough to know you do think independently.
Well, I appreciate that. What I will say is that I do think there is a historical loyalty to the Democratic Party amongst African Americans and black people, particularly in Mississippi and also the South, that has gotten its uprising post-1968, Great Society, Lyndon B. Johnson politics, and moving on through the 70s and throughout. I don't have to retrace that history, and there's great debate about how that affected the African American community as far as the onset of welfare programs and onset of black families not being as merited at higher rates as they used to be.
Yep.
The onset of African American children being born at a higher rate of single parent households than that particular time than ever before, as a result of what these policies actually led to.
And abortion.
And abortion. That is true. That is true. Which I will say first and foremost, that is not the overarching perspective of what black people think in Mississippi. In fact, it's not even close. It doesn't even align with what the Democratic Party actually believes.
I believe that as well.
And I'm going out on a limb to get my sleep at night to say, hey, I don't believe that, and I know you don't either. Everyone has their reasons for continuing what they want to do and how they want to do it from a political party perspective. But for me and how I want to live my life and how I want to represent people in the future, I can't sell something to people that I don't believe in. And I think I was pretty good on the Democratic side at selling something that I believed in all those years, and especially while I ran for office here in Mississippi on the congressional level and also on the statewide level. Everything I said I believed. My mind has changed. So for those out there that have called me a traitor in the last 24 hours, my online Twitter account has blown up. Over 155,000, I don't know if you've seen this, over 155,000 views on this article, about 500 plus comments on this article, and I'll tell you, only 5 or 6 could be considered civil out of 500 plus. And I'll say, I hear you, I understand. I'm the same person that ran as a Democrat. Well, a political party does not represent who I am as a person and what my values are. I think I've proven that over the course of my career. This is a choice I think is best for Mississippi. This is a choice I think that's best for America. And even when we talk about from an economic standpoint, look, the values of what we're talking about now are not going to help poor people get into the middle class. What's going to help poor people get into the middle class is a responsibility of unification as family, a responsibility on education, both unskilled and skilled working, and also an individual pursuit of economic interest for themselves, not from the government. That's not going to actually work. What I do believe also is that there is this underlining opinion that somehow these social programs that are really there to help those most in need, those folks who are unable and unbodied to work and are senior citizens. Nobody's going to ever take Social Security away in this country. Republicans aren't going to do that. Democrats are not going to do that. Will any program, like any other program, need to be reshaped and reformed in order for it to meet the demand of the future? Absolutely, of course. But to say that it's going to be taken away, that's just an fallacy, and it's just not true, and it's a fear tactic. Anything else, that's up for debate.
So we got a break, but you can hang around and keep talking to us. right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, because I'll just say this going out, the statements you just made referring to Social Security, for example, and economic policy, these are fear-mongering narratives that are being used by the Democrats right now that are just completely false. We're coming right back with more. We've got Shuwaski Young in the element 23, but just yesterday he announced that he is leaving the Democrat Party. So before we went to break, Shuwaski, you and I were talking about the fear-mongering coming from the Democrats, honestly. So when they constantly beat this drum that Donald Trump's going to end Social Security and take that away from you, you and I know that's not true. No politician's going to do that.
No politician, whether it's Democratic Party or the Republican Party, or Kamala Harris or Donald J. Trump, has the ability or the sense to even think of whether or not they would even have such a conversation. And in fact, both candidates have said they wouldn't do this.
Right.
Right? It's not as if like the Republican nominee has said we're going to take Social Security away, or even if we're talking about privatization of Social Security and things away, it's still not going to be taken away. It would only be made more solvent or advanced.
Yeah.
One of the two. It would never be decreased. Only more solvent or advanced.
In fact, I would criticize all the candidates for not talking about the Social Security facing financial headwinds and needing to be addressed in a bipartisan fashion to put the thing on sound financial footing.
Well, because the bottom line is that, if you're 25 years old or 35 years old or 41, like myself, I'll be 42 in January, based on the current model and the current system, there's no specific guarantee without changes in the system that Social Security would even be there.
Totally right.
So it doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter who runs Congress in the House or the Senate, that's going to get done.
Right.
The private sector couldn't afford for Social Security to falter. The government couldn't afford for Social Security to falter. And people, whether you're white, black, Republican, Democrat, Native American, Asian, Pacific, it wouldn't matter. People would be in the streets if their parents or their parents' checks were cut off or minimized, and they know that.
Our politics has devolved into such a vitriolic, confrontational state where there just feels like there's just hate that's palpable on both sides for the other. And you sharing with us that you're just somewhat taken aback by the backlash you've received in the last 24 hours, a short 24 hours, for announcing that you're leaving the party. At first, I'm sorry you're having to deal with that.
I didn't know I was that important.
Yeah, exactly. So
literally, not to.
No, I hear you.
Be facetious or in any way sarcastic. I didn't know that many people cared that much. If that amount of people would have turned out to vote, I'd be in office right now. The point is what I'm saying is, and I know that may sound a certain way.
I hear
hope
you.
people don't take offense to what I just said.
Yeah.
But I have been amazed at it.
What do you think it means?
I think it means that people are disappointed. I think it means that people are afraid. I think it means that people want to be able to align themselves with someone who thinks the exact same way they do without knowing that actual person personally. Look, I thank the good Lord above that at 20 years old, I didn't know what I know now. At 30 years old, I didn't know what I knew now. And at 40 to 41, in that year span, because look, this was not the first time that I talked about socio-economic conservative values going forward. I talked about it as a Democrat my entire time. It's just I had a D behind my name, right? And then there were some certain issues that I was supportive of that wouldn't align with what most people would identify as a conservative platform. But most recently, as November of 2023, I was very clear about where I stood. And I said it was an ongoing thought process. Now here, almost right about a year later, I came to the conclusion that, this is where I need to be and what I believe God has put in my heart and called me upon to actually do. I think that where people are as far as the vitriolic effect of it is the fact that they are afraid of what that may mean in the future.
Interesting. Do you feel like maybe they sort of see their side losing?
I think there's no doubt
stroke?
about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think anybody who watches MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or If you're like me, you're on CNBC, watching Squawk Box in the morning, you're looking at the stock market. I think it's very clear where the country wants this. But look, and I'll just go here. Look, if the Republican Party was so bad, and Lord knows there are countless things I disagree with the Republican nominee on for President of the United States.
Yeah.
Many comments that we wouldn't say here in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Right? And just wouldn't say, right? But at the end of the day, if it was so bad, why is this race in such a dead heat? If she was so good for the country, if the record was impeccable based on merit and above and all, why is this a dead heat? Many don't even believe it's actually a dead heat. Many believe we're going to get a blowout on Election Day and have a result before 9 p.m.
Yeah, I think that's quite possible. I really do.
I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, this rapid response campaign for Latino votes and African-American votes should tell you everything that you need to know. That has never been part of your program.
Bringing out Barack Obama to stone black males.
I didn't like what he said. I used to work for him. Love him to death. I think he's the best to ever do it. Still. Absolutely. Admire him. I didn't like what he said, though.
That seems to be the prevailing sentiment within the black male community, though.
Well, the idea that sexism is the reason why we're not going to vote for Kamala Harris isn't.
Is that
offensive.
insulting?
It is. For me, it is. And for many other black men, I believe that it is. I think that at the end of the day, what we are talking about here is, are we going to be better off in 4 years than where we were the last 4 years? And are we better off in the last 4 years than where we were the previous 4 years? I think we can definitely say that inflation was lower, the price of milk was lower, the price of gas was lower. I think that people saw a pathway into our countries for a citizenship was kind of easier, even though we don't have comprehensive immigration reform on the ballot and done. I think that we can say that the business community was happy. I think the stock market reflects that. I think that where we are going forward is a very dangerous path, because now we're talking about penalizing people for taking part in the free market, for taking part of responsibility for themselves and not depending on the government, irrespective of who you can find a job from. This is free information out there.
So you telling me that you tuned into CNBC, you're watching the stock market, and you even made a couple of comments before we went on the air.
Sure.
It tells me that you have a strong interest in economic affairs and matters, and today we're watching the stock market.
It's how I make my living nowadays.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
I don't work for anyone. I'm a day trader now.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so obviously you're tuned into it.
Very much.
So do you think that Trump's economic policies are better than talking about the proposals now, because we're talking about proposals as both of them are approaching Election Day.
Sure.
Than Kamala Harris's. You've seen her litany.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, but
without a doubt.
You've seen her litany of tax proposals, increasing the capital gains rate, which would affect you.
100%.
Yeah.
And it will affect you as well.
I agree.
And everyone listening.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And here's another point I make that a lot of people don't think about. Taxes paid by other people affect you too.
100%.
Agree?
Well, they got to make their money back somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it affects the economy.
Yes.
And when it affects the economy, it affects every one of us. So you may not believe in trickle-down economics, but the aspect of the concept of trickle-down taxes is real.
It's a very real thing. And so many people say, well, I'm not involved in the stock market and I'm not involved in...
It affects you, though.
Listen, if you have a 401k, if you're part of the peers retirement system, you're in the stock market.
No doubt about it.
Whether or not you take control of that, which means going to your HR department, asking about where your money's being invested for your specific account, you can say, hey, I want to control that and make these changes. They have to do that. That's the law, number one. Number two, you're in the market. And for the first time in history, parents are worried about their kids not having opportunities to own a home or to be able to save for college or take vacations.
The American dream, right?
The American dream is what it really is. Than ever before. Right now, this is the first time. It's one thing to say we're going to raise capital gains taxes and corporate taxes. It's another entirely different thing to say we are now going to tax unrealized gains.
Unbelievable. And even though she's proposing only to apply
crazy.
That to those that have more than $100 billion of net worth, that still affects everybody else in a huge way.
And the market's going to react to it.
No doubt about it.
The market's going to look. For me, to be quite honest with you, because look, I'm in trading on a daily basis. Any day, my income could be between $3,000 and $1,000 or more dollars, depending on what trades I take, what risk I take, things of that nature. I make that decision because I want to be part of the economy and part of the American economy, and not be dependent on anyone else based on my political views. Because quite frankly, when you have open political views, that may make it difficult to get hired in certain areas, right? But what I'm saying is, this is the first time in history where generational wealth is being challenged for the future for those who don't have it, which is counterproductive to the American process as a whole.
Stay around. We keep talking.
Yeah, sure.
We
Absolutely.
got Shuwaski Young. I'm going to share what I believe on the other side of the break.
I love to hear it. Great.
Is the central theme to the American dream and why that's at risk today. We're coming right back with Shuwaski. Rhino, we're visiting with Shuwaski Young, who just announced he's leaving the Democrat Party. So before we went to break, I said I would share on the other side of the break, I guess, my view of the American dream, and in particular what I think is been just a core tenet of that for decades. And, of course, the American dream in general means that anything's possible. You have opportunity where you can better yourself
100%.
and go in whichever direction you want to. Some people may get more specific and say it means that you own a house, for example. That is considered an element of the American dream by many, a critical element, and that's fine. But I would say this. Historically, parents, you touched on this a bit, parents have always felt that the American dream means that their offspring can enjoy a more affluent life than they. That's what they yearn for.
Absolutely.
For their children. I want to be able to put my children in place, position them to pursue their dreams, their opportunities, and hopefully live even a better life than I have.
Right.
That's what we as parents aspire to for our children. Would you agree with that?
100%.
And that, I think, is core to the American dream. But now there's concerns about that. We're hearing parents say, I'm just not sure that my children are going to have the same shot at that I did, that seems to be diminishing, and that's a problem.
100%. And for many parents, they're seeing their grown children move back home.
Yeah, back home.
Right now. Especially with the fact that, you could work from home in so many different jobs in corporate America, which is also coming to an end, by the way. And that it's more expensive now than ever before. And look, that reflects the fact that our wages and our things of that nature are less now than they were. In fact, to be quite honest with you, they're 20% less since 2020, right? What you made in 2020 in that salary, of course, with cost of living and difference in what we have right now into 2024, is vastly different than what it is today. So it's just not the price of strawberries or milk or gas or used vehicles or any of that stuff going up. Your dollar is also not as strong, right? And that's happened under Democratic policies and administrations as well, too.
So you stated in your announcement, your Twitter announcement, excuse me, that you've made the prayerful decision. I'm going to read it for you. I have made the prayerful decision to identify as a Christian conservative. I am no longer a Democrat. And you offered an explanation of why. Of course, this was published in the Clarion Ledger. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at some of the comments on Twitter. How many did you say? 150,000, right?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's been 155,000 plus views on it.
Views, okay.
That I've seen.
Okay.
But as far as direct engagement, well over 500 comments. And only about maybe 30 or so likes. Anytime your comments is more than your likes, people vastly disagree with what you just said, right? So I was amazed at it. I've stopped reading it at this particular point.
Well, you're being castigated simply because you identify as Christian. People are questioning your faith.
100%. I'm going to hell now, is what I've been told.
It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. I've sold out black people. I'm a traitor. I'm going to hell.
So I got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do these sorts of comments and the feedback, the backlash in particular, you received in the last 24 hours, does that even further convince you that you made the right decision?
It gives me more fuel. It gives me more fuel to keep this path forward. It gives me more fuel to build the relationships in the Mississippi Republican Party over the next course of the few years while I make a decision on what it is that I'm going to be doing in the future. It gives me more fuel to talk about economic prosperity and how we can actually wean ourselves away from democratic policies that are going to basically keep people poor, keep people dependent upon the government, keep the government spending and also printing more money that's going to ultimately raise inflationary prices.
Just talked about that on the show today.
You know, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what we can do in Mississippi to make sure that police officers and firemen and teachers are getting their fair shake, and also what we can do to encourage more families to ensure that their kids are going into technical, vocational, and ultimately academic majors in Mississippi schools.
Yeah, where there are plenty of opportunities.
Absolutely.
And despite what the Democrat Party may think, we don't have to have DEI programs for those people to get a job.
Look, quite frankly, I think the way that, and I know Shad White has rolled this out, you know. I haven't always agreed with the way that his language was, but I think that certain aspects of DEI are important. I do believe that.
Okay.
Right? But what I'm saying is it can't be viewed as a punchline for points in history that make some people feel uncomfortable and points in history that give other people a reason to believe this is why we're victims, right? So I think that where we are right now is today, personal responsibility, faith, and education, and our collective view on what we want our state to actually look like for everyone. The same way we want Mississippi State's football team to look like, the same way we want Ole Miss's football team to look like. We want to see all of them do good in the SEC. We want to see Jackson State, even though Deion left us, we still want to be able to have college game day and that brings people together. We are the same Mississippi that people play softball and baseball together as kids. And as we get older, we still engage in those particular sports together. But when we start talking politics, somehow we're so different. We believe in the same God. Most of us are Baptists. It's fine if you're Catholic or AME or anything else too. We have the same values. Why are we letting people at the national level separate us and make us something that we are not and don't believe in? And that's why I wrote this article, and that's why I left the party.
Yeah, that's interesting. And like I said, just looking through some of the comments here, again, the thing
Many of which probably didn't even read the article.
Oh, I'm sure. I suspect you're right. But I just, again, my take on this is that it's largely because you're a black person and you're leaving 100%. The Democrat Party, and they just can't deal with that, can't accept that.
And this whole idea, and maybe look, I'm a political scientist by trade and by major and also by practice in politics. Okay. But I still don't know what this grifting is. I think this is what people call me a grifter. A Trump grifter. Republicans are paying you. And that to me was more offensive than anything, even my religion.
I saw that.
What does that mean?
I don't even know.
People paid me to leave the Democratic Party. Look, I would say this to anyone out there that's listening. No one can pay me to do anything. I don't work for anyone. Whether I'm up in the morning and make $1,000 before 10 a.m. in the market, and the rest of my day I can spend writing or going hunting or whatever it is, and I don't answer to anyone else outside of those particular means, I think is a very good thing. I think that gives me more time with my family. I think it gives me more time to focus on my health. Lord knows my blood pressure could use it. But I don't understand the fact of what is a $1,200 stimulus that Trump gave, and somehow that's the reason why black men are supporting Trump or supporting the Republican Party. It's insulting. It's insulting. And I think that it's offensive, and I hope that people in the future can have a little bit more patience and virtue in how they actually choose. Look, if you want to judge me on the fact that I left the Democratic Party, sure, go right ahead. But you can't judge my motives. You can't judge my motives. And I think that I gave people a very well-explained answer as to why that was. Because I owed myself that, and I owed people that.
Did it become difficult for you, Shuwaski, to remain in the Democrat Party when you see the proposals and the agenda being proposed, being advanced by the party that you just fundamentally disagree with. Like, you're a day trader. You understand economics quite a bit.
I'm a capitalist.
You're a capitalist.
I'm a capitalist. Bottom line. Yeah.
You look at the policies, and they're somewhat anti-capitalist.
Absolutely. They're not going to help people who are free-minded and want to be in control of their own lives. These same agendas where we're talking about, hey, if you want to be... And forgive me, Mississippi and Gerardo, if I'm being crass here. Look, if you want to be born a girl and now be identified as a boy, or vice versa, you want that liberty. And through the Constitution and through democratic means, and not as a party, but the process as a whole in democracy in our democratic republic, you have that now. If you want to love who you want to love that's of the same gender, you have that right now.
Right.
I think that where we are right now, people should have that same right to live their lives independent of those choices and not be forced with it in their faces, and also policies, and ask them to pay for it at the same time.
But when that becomes an imposition on the rights of others, that's where I draw the line. Is that your...
That is exactly where I draw the line.
Okay.
No one is saying that you shouldn't have a right to do some of these other things. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
Right? And if they want you to get very specific so they can put you in a box.
Yeah.
What we're saying is you don't have a right to impede on my rights as well.
With you.
And it's simple as that.
You and I could work together to get a lot of stuff done.
I look forward to it.
Shuwaski Young has been our guest here on Middays. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Much respect to you for making that big step.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I'm in Mississippi. Folks, I don't live in California, no matter what they tell you. You know, my daughter's there.
We're coming right back.
We're
Thanks.
fine. Thank you.